President Trump confronted South Africa's president about the genocide of white farmers, while the regime media calling it lies. Correspondent Paul Tisley spoke to the South African farmer who created those white crosses that display, and he, for one, is glad the president is finally showing the world what is really happening there.
Hi, our research shows the content of the White Crosses video isn't what it was described to be in the Oval Office, but it does highlight the brutal murders of farmers here in South Africa. In 2020, a farming couple, White, were killed for the money in their safe by two local men. Their home in a rural community 200 miles east of Johannesburg was ransacked, their car and a laptop stolen. All the appearances of a straightforward, not racially motivated crime. One local farmer told me he was so shocked that he made some 2,500 white crosses and temporarily placed them along the murdered couple's funeral route. He even flew in a helicopter to film the route, the video that was shown in the Oval Office. The farmer is scared for his safety and asked not to go on camera or give his name, but told me the crosses were not, as the president said, burial sites. They were symbols, rather, of all the farmers and farm workers, black and white, who had been killed by 2020. He didn't know the precise number of deaths. It was a guess. He says more black farm workers are being killed than white, but claims it's 10 times more dangerous to live as a farmer than to live in a city. He told me he doesn't want to become a refugee, but wants to stay and fix the country. He was shocked and delighted that his video made it into the Oval Office, as it draws the spotlight onto the farm safety issue. At the time, he and his friends also erected a banner asking President Ramaphosa for help. 5 years later, lots of words, but no real help. Another farming friend of his was killed just a few months ago. He's worried about his safety sufficiently that he drives an armored pickup truck with run-flat tires, and he and his family don't sleep at his large farm. For Newsmax, Paul Tilsley, Johannesburg.
Paul, thank you so much for that report. Let's continue this conversation with Jaco, Kleynhans, spokesperson for Solidarity Movement in South Africa. Jaco, thanks so much for joining us. If you watch other media outlets, even the Associated Press, you see all the headlines, Trump's false suggestion, fact-checking Trump's claims, Trump's false claims. They called it baseless. And clearly, we just heard from the report there that there is a lot of basis to what President Trump is saying there. And then just last week, our country welcomed in 59 white South African refugees who are clearly fleeing for their safety.
Absolutely so, and it's absolutely dishonest of all these old mainstream legacy media who wants to tell us that President Trump based these decisions on policy towards South Africa on things that were not true. The only thing that they took out of what happened in the Oval Office 2 days ago was at one point where President Trump showed a picture, and he referred to those crosses and he said those were graves, and it was just at one point where we actually misspoke. But let's be honest, what is the facts? And President Trump was absolutely correct on the facts. There were more than 3,000 farmers in South Africa killed in the last 3 decades. More than 90% of them were white Afrikaner farmers, and we can show the graves of those farmers to anyone. In 86% of the cases, people were tortured before they died on their farms. In many instances, hours and hours of torture. We've reached out to the South African government for years and years, asking them to declare farm murders a priority crime in South Africa. They were unwilling to do that. In South Africa, politicians sing a song where they say, kill the boer, kill the farmer. We've asked President Ramaphosa to distance himself from that. We, at the end, needed President Trump to do that. But the media, all these international media, they would like to focus on that one instance where President Trump specifically focused on those crosses and not on the realities of the farm murders. They're not sending media teams to South Africa to go to the farms where people were murdered the last few years. No, they rather prefer to focus on one single image that President Trump included in that material.
South Africa is so dangerous. I mean, the country has seen nearly 20,000 murders from from April through December 2024. It's the highest murder rates in the world. People are scared for their future there. And meantime, you got the ladies of The View. They're criticizing President Trump for allowing white Africans to flee here as refugees, saying it's a middle finger to the black community. Take a listen to this, sir.
Don't you think when he lets these white Africans in and claims that's giving the middle finger to the black community? My God.
Your thoughts, Jaco?
Yes, I mean, that's a crazy idea. I think they don't understand South Africa and what's happening in South Africa. Let's be honest that there's a persecution of Afrikaners happening in South Africa at the moment. That's not only in terms of safety, it's also cultural. There's 142 racial laws in South Africa that prescribe racial discrimination against the white minority in South Africa, which is a small minority. We're 7% of the population in South Africa. There's racial laws against us. There's monuments that are removed, that are vandalized. There's specific steps taken to keep white South Africans out of the workplace. And if you add to that the physical threat with farm attacks, with people being attacked, then it makes sense that people want to flee to America. And if you look at this 59 people who left for America and what happened to them, they were attacked on their farms. They had severe trauma in their life. Some of their family members died in those farm attacks. And it makes sense that President Trump made the decision to offer them refugee status in the U.S.
Well, thank God for President Trump, not afraid to speak the truth. Jaco Kleynhans, thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.